So welcome, everyone. We've got imagery, a lot of imagery. We have got so much imagery that if we printed it out, because of course, why not, we would cover the whole of Australia. We might not get Tasmania in, sorry Tasmanians, we're picking on them, but we would get most of Australia. And in fact, I did a little calculation last week, and I thought, what if we saved all of our imagery, not in AWS, but on 3.5-inch floppy disks? Because of course, why wouldn't you? And I figured out that it was basically billions and billions of those floppy disks that we would need to store our imagery. And if, for example, I decided that I wanted to put those floppy disks somewhere, and why not a standard 20-foot shipping container? Because, of course, why not? I worked out that we would need about 913 shipping containers. There or thereabouts. I checked the maths a couple of times. There were a lot of zeros. I think we're about right. So we have imagery in Australia, the US, and New Zealand. You've taken in all of those numbers. Let's dive right in and see what we do with all of that imagery. A tale of two map browsers. MapBrowser Classic. Who here uses this or recognises this? Lots of hands. This is our old faithful. This is the new map browser. Does anyone use this version? I love you all. Who hasn't used this version? Who didn't know we even had a new map browser? Well, you do now. Surprise! And the great news is that you do have access to this already. So if you have a Nearmap subscription today, you can use the new map browser. And when I go to my very, it seems, risky live demo in just a moment, I will show you how to get to it. So you might ask, why do we have a new map browser? Why bother? Well, unlike a fine wine or a classic car, software does not age so well. If we want to bring you all of the new goodness that you saw this morning, our 3D content, artificial intelligence, even things like being able to measure the height of a building from a 2D image, those things are just not possible in our old map browser, or map browser classic, as I like to lovingly call it. Unfortunately, that technology stack just isn't up to the task, and so we are moving across to a new version of map browser that will allow us to build better products for you in the future. So let's meet her. And this is the risky part now, where I move to a very risky live demo. Okay, step one, success. This is the new map browser that you can see here in front of you. So let's take a little tour. We're going to work in a clockwise direction. So up here, we have the menu. Now, in the menu, there's a number of different pieces of wonderful feature. We have the roads overlay, and I'll quickly turn that on. There we go. And so the roads overlay is essentially a transparent street map that goes over our imagery and helps you orient where you are. I'll just turn that off again really easily here. Also in the menu, we'll come back to some of these later, there are shortcuts to a few other features, including things like being able to switch back to MapBrowser Classic if you need to, and also getting to the self-service or the administrator portal if you need to as well. So let's move on. We have search, and let's search for, where are we here? We're at the Rosalind Packer Theatre. There we go. And here we are. Exactly here. Now you'll notice as the location pin is placed, we get a whole bunch of information about the location, just like you would in MapBrowser Classic. We can see the address, we can see the latitude and longitude, which you can copy and paste into another application if you need to. We can also add this to our watch list. Can I ask here who has used the watch list feature? Perfect. So for those of you who haven't, what I can do, if I click, is I can essentially say I'd like to know when there's new imagery available for this particular location. And so what happens is this gets sent off to your account administrator portal as a location that you're watching, and you'll get an email from Nearmap every time we publish a new survey for this. You'll also notice here there is the photo date and time, so I can understand exactly when that particular part of the image was taken. And I can also, if I have access, go and view oblique imagery for the location. But let's come back to that later. If I continue to move along here, I have the location pin. Now I can just place that somewhere else by clicking on the map, and I'll get the details for that location. We have the text tool, so we can annotate the map. Now, if I zoom in here to Barangaroo, to the park, and I can add some annotations to the map. So, for example, if you are working on a construction site or landscaping and you need to make some notes on the imagery or what you're looking at, you can easily do that. The line tool. One thing to point out about the line tool is in MapBrowser Classic, we actually have two versions of it. We have a line tool and a path tool. We've squished that down to save some space in the new version, and I'll show you exactly what that does. I'm sure everyone has used this. I was looking at all of the stats of features that are used, and this is, apart from searching, the #1 feature used by a mile, more than a mile, thousands of kilometres. So basically what I can do is I can take the line tool and I can measure the distance along the ground. And so if I double click to enter to finish, you'll see here that I've drawn a line length of 33 metres. I can see the bearing for that line. And I can also do things like change the colour to make it stand out. I can turn labels on and off. And so you can see that I can start to make much more meaning out of this map by measuring, annotating, using colour to define different things. You can't do that in the old map browser, by the way. You can't add colour. So let's say I wanted to draw a path. The thing that I'm measuring is not necessarily a straight line. Instead of having a separate tool for this, I can simply take the line tool again, and I can start to trace along the path, just by clicking on the map at each point that I want to change it. Again, double-click to enter. Now let's say I made a mistake. I can either delete the whole thing, or I can go back to a particular vertice. And by double-clicking, I can remove that vertice. So that's a little hot tip for you. The other thing I can also do is very easily just drag any point along the line to adjust it and change that path. So you don't have to start again. You can measure and you can also adjust as you go. Okay, let's continue on. The area tool, second most used measuring feature. If I wanted to know, for example, the total area of this piece of lawn, so just say I've got a landscaping maintenance contract and I need to figure out how much time it's going to take to keep this lawn in shape, I can measure the area really easily. And again, it's a very similar process. Just click at each point. And I'm doing the roughest job in history. You're probably all judging me right now. Someone said not at all. Thank you for your support. Okay. And again, we have the area. And I can change the opacity now. So if I need to, I can change the colour. I can make it totally opaque. Or if I just want the outline, I can actually remove the fill from the middle as well. So again, it gives you a little bit more versatility to start marking up that map. The radius tool does what it says on the tin. I can find the radius. So this is really useful if you're trying to understand, say, the reach of a crane or the sort of, canopy of a particular tree or shrub that you're looking at. So let's just use this roundabout. And I can easily just draw that. If I want to move it, I can do that as well. I can just grab the middle dot, and I can actually move that circle. And at one of the previous sessions, somebody asked me, can I draw one circle on the map? Or more than one circle on the map at a time, because that's a limitation in Classic. And the answer is yes, and I will just prove it to you by doing exactly that. And we'll make that one green. There we go. So these are all pretty simple features, right? But it's up to you and your imagination and your workflows as to how you make the most of them. And a little bit later in the session, I'm going to play you a couple of videos that show you some of our customers, actually 2 of our US customers that are from quite different industries, and how they make the most of MapBrowser. So you'll notice here, height and width are both kind of grayed out, so I click and nothing happens. We'll come to that in a second. Now, one of the features that is quite new and only available in the new MapBrowser is our projects feature. Can I ask, has anyone here actually used projects so far? One lonely person that I saw. Okay, so the projects feature, what is it? This has actually been inspired by our customers. I'm sure lots of you use PowerPoint, Microsoft Word. Some of you are probably ArcGIS users and you make maps. Think of projects as a way to save what you create. So just like a Word document, you can either start a brand new project. Let's do that. And here it is. I can name it. Let's call this Sydney Navigate. Never 9. That's a new thing. That's a new type of special session. I can add some labels to it so I can give it a little bit of context and meaning. So, I might say that this is, new job. And we can open that. And so now what you'll see here on the left is this little tab. And I can see that I'm working inside of my new Sydney Navigate project. A project is kind of like a blank sheet of paper, really, at this point. So I can really start to now draw all of make my measurements, my annotations. I can start to plan this site. And everything that I do will be automatically saved, so I can come back to it later. And to show you an example, if I go here to projects, let's look at one I prepared earlier. And let's have a look at Botanic Gardens. So I hit open, and you'll see a whole bunch of measurements and annotations that I've done here earlier. Now, over on the left is a way to manage all of the different things that I've drawn on the map. Does anyone in here use Photoshop or any other drawing tools? Yeah, so you're familiar with the concept of layers and organizing and grouping objects together into different layers. It's exactly what this does. So here, I can really easily hide a particular layer and turn it back on again. I can also move things in between different layers, just as you would in some of those drawing applications. So the idea is that it gives you a lot more power to create your site plans, create your landscaping designs, to do whatever you need to do for that job, come back to it later, but also work with it in a little bit more of an intelligent way. So let's close that. And let's go back to this thing called a workspace. Now here in the workspace, you'll see some of the things that we were doing in the demo a bit earlier. The workspace is kind of like a big sheet of blank paper. And the idea is that you can scribble on it, you can do whatever you need to do, and you can walk away from your desk. You can go home, you can go for a lunchtime run, you come back and it's still there. So just as if I was scribbling in my notebook, I wouldn't expect that to be erased when I came back. It's the same concept for the workspace. And the advantage of that, of course, is that, hey, I've just started doing all of this work, I don't want to lose it. What I can do is I can save it as a project. Or, if I don't want to do that, so I can either save as a project, or I can just clear the paper and start again. Okay. Let's close that one. So let's continue on our little tour. Now, down here is where we change the different imagery layers that we have available. So if I have a look, we're currently looking at our top-down or our vertical imagery. GIS people in the room will think of it as ortho or orthographic views. We also have panorama imagery. Does anyone use panorama? It used to be called multi-view in the old world. Yeah. So panorama is a 45-degree angled view of all of our imagery stitched together in a scrollable photo map as well. So as I have a look here, you can see that you now start to get a lot more context from that imagery. So the top-down is great, high res, see lots of detail, but it's really hard to tell whether or not something is, a 2-story building or a 5-story building. Panorama starts to give you more context. It's kind of a 2.5D view of the world. Now, if I go again into my imagery picker, let's have a look at obliques. We mentioned obliques before. So here's our oblique view. What's different? If I zoom out, what you'll see is this kind of diamond, which is sort of the individual kind of source photo, right? So it's the very sort of original frame, and it's actually all of these photos that are stitched together by our processing pipeline to make up our vertical and our oblique images. But the advantage of a source photo or an oblique image is that it is just made up of one set of metadata, and because it's one image, it allows us to do a whole heap of things, really cool things actually. I can do things like measure the height of a building. So let's take a look at that. Let's look at this one right here. Now, if I use the height tool, and I take a good guess at what's on the ground, that looks about right, and I measure to the top, I can see that that part of the building is about 8.96, so about 9 meters tall. So that starts to now give me context. So if I am worried about safety or access, or I need to know how big a ladder I need to take to site, I've got a real sense now of that building. I can also measure width. So if I want to know how wide that part of the roof is, I can also measure that. Now, of course, the difference here is that I actually am measuring height. When you are measuring, I think in MapBrowser Classic, the measuring tools that you use will work, so the line tool will work. But what you're measuring is you're measuring distance on the ground. You're not actually measuring that kind of three-dimensional measurement, and that's why it's not going to be accurate. So don't do that. If we now continue on with oblique, there's a couple of other really cool features. We can measure the pitch and the area of a roof. So let's find a nice gable roof for the first one. Any roofers in the audience? Construction? Hi. Please yell out if I get the terminology wrong. This here is a gable roof, yes? Yay! Something went right today. Okay, so here's our gable roof. I know, joke. So we click the line tool. Now the line tool in obliques kind of gains a couple of extra superpowers. So what I can now do, if we choose this roof, actually this has got a better view. Let's use this one. I'm going to minimize my risk of technical things that can go wrong in a live demo. So let's measure this part of the roof. So I'm going to measure sort of from here to here. Now, just like if you were to climb up on a roof, if you are shoddy with your measurements here, then it's not going to be particularly accurate. So my tip for anyone using this is to kind of zoom in, and even if it's a bit blurry, it's okay, because what you want to do is make sure you've kind of placed that in the right spot. Now you'll see here there's like a little wizard on the right, and this is telling me that I need to click next. So when I do that, I will get a second view of that roof. Oh, I knew I chose the wrong one. Where is it? I don't know where that original line is. So what I can do is I can come back to the primary view, and I can go, oh, it's the back of the house, away from the tree, near this white building, cross my fingers, come back to the secondary view. Top right? That one? That one? Yeah? You sure? You know the property. Oh, well, I'm not going to argue with you. No, you are right. You're absolutely right. So what I'm doing at this point is I'm basically placing that line back into where it also ought to be. Okay? Let's get him in view a little bit better. And we're refining that line across the two photos. And the reason we need to do that is in order to calculate the length and in order to calculate the pitch, we essentially need the information that comes with both of those photos so that we can figure out where those 2 points live in the real world. So remember, John this morning talked about understanding where each pixel lives in the real world. It has its own location. We're using those two different photos to triangulate exactly what that means. And that allows us to understand pitch, length, etc. So now that I know where it is, and we've done that calculation, or the clever algorithms that sit behind MapBrowser have done that, not me. The line length, so that's about 5 meters, the line length that I've drawn, and we can see the pitch is about 33 degrees. Does anyone here use rise over run in roofing? Yep, and if you need to know what that measurement is, you can just change that. Okay? That's pitch. And of course, if you want to know the area of a roof, or you want to know the average slope, so for a hip roof, which this would not work on, then you can use the area tool to do essentially the same thing. So again, we take the area tool, we measure very carefully, much more carefully than I'm doing. Again, we hit next. The power of live demo. And again, we would do the same thing. So we would figure out where I am. Straight up? That one? It helps because that's there as well. But the idea of what I'm demonstrating is that if you do get a little bit lost, you can come back to that primary view so that you can reorient yourself. So let's drag that back up. I'm also doing this on a touchpad, which is a little challenging. But now that I've refined that, again, I can see square meters on the roof, and I can get a pitch, or the average pitch. Now this one I don't need to do using the area tool unless I need to see the area because it's a gable roof, but as soon as you're dealing with a hip roof, this is the tool you want to be using. Okay. Phew, I made it through that part of the demo. So let's go back for a moment to vertical. Continue on. So this is kind of really cool. I like this compass because it kind of lets you switch in and out of vertical and panorama really quickly. So I can go south, north, east, west. Zoom out a little bit and change my views. If I want to come back into vertical, I can just hit the center of the compass and it will reset. You'll also notice here the timeline's changed. Part of the reason is we're just simply running out of space along the top, as you've got in MapBrowser Classic. So everything's available here in the list. And you can also use the arrows to go forwards and backwards. Has anyone here used the split view feature, comparing imagery? Yep. Awesome. It's still here in the new MapBrowser. We've just moved it a little. So let's go and have a look at Barangaroo again, because it's had so much change over time. So let's come to the most recent imagery that we've got from about not quite a month ago. Let's go into split view. Maybe zoom in a little. Lots of stuff happening at Packers Casino. That's right, we can see it right from our office window as well. So it's been pretty, I don't know, it's been a little bit sad to see our view kind of eroded by this big structure over time. But let's have a look at what's been going on. So over on the left, we have our most recent capture. Let's go back. Let's go back a long time. Let's go back to 2013. Look at the difference. There we go. So this is kind of cool if you want to get a really quick view of what's changed. And then to turn it off, just click on the button again. Okay, so that is the high-level tour of some of the new features that we have, and we will go into a few more details coming up. So if we can switch back to the presentation. We made it. Live demo over. Yeah. Okay, but there's more. So MapBrowser Most Wanted. So one of the things I did before sort of coming to these events was I thought, I wonder what people are really interested in. So I went through survey data, I went through our support tickets, I went through all of the queries we've collected recently, and came up with kind of, these are the top 5 things that people were interested in, and the top 5 questions. The first was, can we rotate the map? Yes, you can. Can I print all of the stuff that I've marked up on the map? Yes, you can. Does it work on mobile and tablet? Yes, it does. Autocomplete search, we saw a demonstration of that just a little while ago. And of course, we can change colors. All of these things are available in the new MapBrowser. So let's take a look at rotating the map. It's really easy to do. You simply, on a Mac, hold down the Option key And while clicking and holding with the mouse, you just drag it around. On a PC, it is the Alt key that you use instead of the Option key, and it will work in the same way. And then if you want to reset it back to north, you just click the center of the compass and it will bring you back to a north view. Why is this important? If you're making lots of marks on the map, if you're drawing, if you're measuring, sometimes the thing that you want to measure is not necessarily oriented in a great way. If you can spin the image around and then map things out, it just makes life a little easier. Printing with Markup. This is really interesting and very easy to do in the new map browser. I will say that what you get here is literally what you see is what you get, and it's easy to do. You just click the Export button. Make sure that you've selected Include Map Objects and hit Download. And that will just save an image to your computer. It's a PNG file, so it's got decent resolution, and then you can use that for presentations, or you can use it to print out and share with people, or email it. Can I ask here, one of the things we are looking at doing is printing out a high-res version of this where the measurements are kind of a separate layer, so they're sort of a vectorized layer. Is that something that people would potentially want to use? Yep. To put inside of CAD or other applications like that? Yep. We're working on it. Mobile and tablet. So the new map browser's been designed to be responsive, and then what that means is that it will work on mobile, tablet, laptop/desktop. There are a couple of features that won't work on mobile yet, and some of that is just to do with the screen space that's available. It's a bit small. But we often get questions, will we do an app? Now, the answer to that is not right now, and the reason is that as soon as we start to build an actual app for, say, Android and iOS, we start to slow ourselves down because we have to, each time we release a new feature, go through a process of making sure that it works across multiple formats. We have to make sure that it works with different versions of the operating system, and then we have to go through the process of getting that application approved by Apple or Google. And so it just means we can't get things to you as fast. If you do want to use it on a mobile or a tablet and get fast access, best thing to do is once you're logged in, just save that URL, bookmark it, and you can save it as a shortcut onto your desktop, and it's just as good, probably better than an app. Auto search, we saw a demonstration of that again, but it is fairly smart. It will work based on the area that you're in. So if I'm in Perth and I search for Barangaroo, it's not going to be necessarily the top result. It will always try and find a result that's kind of located near where you are geographically in terms of where you're on the map. But you just type ahead, you'll see the drop-down list and you can pick your result. Changing line colours, we did a demonstration of that just before, so we'll skip through that. Now, before I run through this, who here is an administrator on their account? Now, rather than bore you with this demonstration, if you're all good with it, do you guys have any issues or you're comfortable with adding new users to the account? Perfect. For other people, if you are not an administrator, this does not concern you, but essentially it's really easy to do. It's a matter of going to the self-service portal, and if you've got the right access as an admin, you can just add people's email addresses in, and then they'll get an email from us, which will allow them to get access. So you can control that yourself. You can obviously resend the invitation if you need to, if they've lost the email. API keys. Is anyone here using our imagery inside of other apps using an API? And have you been able to set up everything using the API key? Did you find that simple to do? Perfect. I'm seeing nodding. So we'll skip through that. For everyone else, if you do want to use our imagery inside of applications like ArcGIS or some Autodesk apps or anything else where you need a sort of API, a back-end connection, you'll need to set up an API key so you can actually have that application authorized to connect to the Nearmap imagery. Okay, MapBrowser Mythbusters. Can I ask here, who uses Street View inside of MapBrowser today? Okay, so the most common question we get about Street View is, why is the imagery so out of date? Does anyone know why? Yeah. Do you know how many people actually think that it is our imagery? And I'm very sorry to say that Nearmap is not yet in the business of Street View, and so we have no control over it. But if you do want to figure out how to use Street View in the new map browser, rather than having the little yellow Google man, what we have is the ability to just simply right-click on the spot that you want to see Street View. You right-click. What will happen is you click Google Street View. It will open up this in a brand new browser tab, and you'll be taken to the location that you've clicked on. So it's just as easy as it was in MapBrowser Classic. In fact, I actually think it's better because what you get here is actually simply Google Street View, not via their API, which is what we were using before. So that is how you access it. So, more than one perspective. We have a lot of imagery available, and I think as you saw this morning, we are expanding the content that you can get access to inside of MapBrowser to make it really easy for you. We have vertical, panorama, oblique, and our 3D textured mesh. And in the future, who knows what else we'll have. I like to think of MapBrowser as your secret sauce. We make it as easy as we can, or at least that's the aim, so please tell us if it's not easy. But the aim is to make it as simple as possible for you to use our imagery, to view it, to interact with it, and to take it from our environment into yours using export. You know, I think one of the things that we've found talking to our customers is that MapBrowser helps people right at the beginning of the process. So, you know, if you're scoping a job, if you're planning, if you're quoting, if you need to respond to a bid and tender quickly, if you need to monitor a job or monitor a site or monitor your area of interest over time, we make that possible through the tools that we have as well as the imagery. And with that, I wanted to show you a couple of customer stories so that you can see how they do this today. So Elite Grounds is a customer that we have over in the US, and they're based just out of Salt Lake City. And I can see one of our US colleagues over there in the bleachers nodding. And so Cameron, who you're about to see on film, is one of our biggest advocates. In fact, we spoke to Cameron quite a lot as we were developing the projects tool, and a lot of his input has been used to kind of hone that and get that release out to everyone in that feature. And he's certainly got a lot more suggestions, and so we're really happy to be able to share his story. So Elite Grounds is a landscaping company based in Utah, as I said. They have about 10 employees, and about half of those use MapBrowser on a regular basis. They do residential and commercial jobs, and most of the things that they do are, you know, a combination of new installations, and they can be jobs, you know, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, all the way through to kind of regular maintenance jobs. So they do things like, you know, maintenance for the Utah University campus.
I'm Cameron Ashby. The company I work for is the Elite Grounds, and we are a landscape maintenance company. One of the landscape management emails came through, saw the ad, clicked on it, saw that the service area included Utah, went and signed up for one of the demos. I just got on there, saw all the capabilities, saw how often we can go back into history. The history is important because Google and Bing, they only do one flyover a year, basically. In fact, I can have it in March and April, or towards October, where the leaves will most likely be gone. I can actually have the boundary lines a lot more easily seen between turf and beds and rocks and native. Having it more often was better. Having the leaves in the tree canopies not there made it easier to see our boundary lines, so we can get accurate total square footage for each project that we were bidding on. It's actually hard to find a negative to the whole thing, knowing how much better it is than everything else I've been using. It's easy to use. It's probably one of the easiest ones to use because the toolbar's up at the top. Instead of sending 10 people out to go measure however many properties they can, one person can do it in less of the time. It was easy to just zoom in super close. I mean, Google, you only can get like that far away is what it feels like, but really you want to be like that much closer. The fact that you can actually get that much more accurate means that we can give a better number to a client. So the numbers we give them will be real. So giving as close to accurate numbers as you can helps you survive as a company, but helps provide a price of a product that you can give to your customer. The fact that you can go in, you can do it, you can see it from the very beginning, is just amazing.
Now, the next company that I wanted to share with you is a company called HMTV. So I'm not sure if anyone here is in infrastructure or construction. You may be aware of these guys. Again, they're based in the US, and they have about 4,000 employees, so they're not a small firm. But they do a lot of infrastructure, architecture, construction, engineering consultancy. Now, the people that you're about to see on screen are part of their kind of visualization department. And what they do is they take a range of information, including Nearmap imagery and Nearmap 3D, and they use that to support bids and tenders. So it's really important for them to have the ability to bring some of those projects to life. And the advantages that they get from us are obviously at that front stage of bidding and tendering, where they're able to really quickly respond, really quickly communicate visually to stakeholders about what a project proposal might look like. So let's take a little look at HMTV.
HMTV is an infrastructure solutions firm where we tackle any major project in any city in the United States.
These are large infrastructure projects, so there needs to be kind of a substantial investment in visuals to sell the work.
The aerial imagery is the foundation on which we build all projects.
The most important aspects of aerial maps to our work is that they be up-to-date and highly detailed. Nearmap imagery improves our overall process by giving us accurate data that we can integrate right into engineered drawings.
Nobody else in the industry is providing imagery that is as uniform and consistent as Nearmap. On top of it being some of the highest resolution we can get, its image quality from tile to tile is way more consistent, so you can make a much more beautiful image with a lot less work.
We love the 3D aspect of Nearmap, with the orthographic views, with the panoramic views, with measurement tools, and the ability to measure slopes, to measure footprints of buildings, to accurately measure their heights. That all used to be guesswork for us.
With Nearmap 3D, we can actually measure from the base of the pillar all the way up to the top of the pillar and understand that scale and get exact dimensions so we can model it correctly in 3ds Max. So for starting with Nearmap aerial imagery, it's used throughout the entire pipeline here at HMTV, and it gives us the fidelity and clarity to understand every project.
It definitely has been one of those programs that has changed the way we work. Nearmap has given us the control and the ability to feel confident that when someone comes with us about a project, we can look it up instantly and say, yeah, we got good data there.
Awesome. So hopefully some of that's given you a little bit of inspiration as to how you could potentially maximize using not just MapBrowser, but Nearmap imagery in your work. So, what's coming up? What's the roadmap? Right now, one of the big focuses for me is to get things from MapBrowser Classic into the new MapBrowser so that everyone gets the same clean, simple experience, and you're not sort of moving between the two. So right now, of course, we have 3D in MapBrowser. That's quite new. Only the last couple of weeks we've had that. Property and cadastre boundaries. Who uses that? I promise it's coming in the new MapBrowser. It's half built. We've built the back-end side of things, and now we just need to put it into the new MapBrowser. So that'll be one of the first next new things that you see. KML import, shapefile import. I know I've spoken to a lot of people even today that are using KMLs to get more information into MapBrowser. Anyone in here, you're looking for KML shapefile imports? Yeah, so that's coming. So you can do it in MapBrowser Classic. That will come into the new MapBrowser as well. Other things that we're working on, elevation profile. Does anyone in MapBrowser Classic draw a line and then you see the elevation data? Yep. I'd love to talk to you later on after the break because I'm really interested in understanding more about those use cases and how we can make that tool work better for you as well. So that's another thing that we will be bringing across. Obviously, Michael implied this morning that we will eventually have AI inside of MapBrowser. And in fact, my friendly helper, Aaron, down here at the front, who's hiding, he's actually helping to work on that at the moment. He's one of our new product designers, so he's putting together some prototypes. So that will eventually be in MapBrowser, not right now, but definitely in the future. Later down the track, we're looking at different ways to get more of your data inside to MapBrowser. So I get often asked about things like, can I have utilities maps? What about things like dial before you dig? The reality is that every one of you, I bet, has a different data source that you use, that you know, that you trust. People in New South Wales will use different information to people in Queensland. Now, rather than trying to make sense of all of that data myself and figure out how we can host it all and be all things to all people, what I'm going to work on in the future is the ability for you to bring that in yourself. Now, we certainly don't want to be the next ArcGIS. We don't want to make the tool overcomplicated. But for you to be able to bring in simple information like that from a data source that you know and trust, that's what we're aiming for. So that's what that's about. And then, of course, we have improvements to our self-service portal. So better admin functions, better views of your account, easier to manage. There are some of the things that we'll be working on in the future. We will be saying farewell to MapBrowser Classic. Unfortunately, it won't live forever, but as we're transitioning across, you absolutely will still have the ability to use it and switch between both experiences. We will eventually shut that down, but not without plenty of knowledge and not before you have the opportunity to make sure that everything that we've built in the new MapBrowser works for you. And with that, can I swap back to the live demo? Just to throw a little curveball in. Beautiful. Thank you. So the way to get to MapBrowser Classic from new, as I mentioned before, if I literally hit this button, very obviously called Switch to MapBrowser Classic, it will open up in a new tab, and it will take you to the same location at the same zoom level. And you'll also see, if you've never used it before on a computer like I have here, you'll see this wonderful, quick little demo. There we go. And if you're in MapBrowser Classic and you would prefer to use the new MapBrowser, or you just want to take a little sticky peek, go up here to the little person icon on the right. And again, very unobscurely named, go to new MapBrowser. Just click. It will take you into the new MapBrowser. And again, same location, same zoom level. Okay, one last thing. Resources. We have a wealth of information available for you in various different formats. If you're interested in MapBrowser, if you're interested in APIs, if you're interested in how to set up more users on your account, or API keys, any of those things, our documentation site is a wealth of information. And so if you go to docs.nearmap.com, you'll find all of that there. The other thing is we have a YouTube channel. And we have our very own Nearmap YouTube channel that has a whole range of content. It has webinar recordings, it has videos from our wonderful support team, it has other product information and videos narrated by me, so I apologise, you have to listen to me. But you could turn the sound off because our visual guys are excellent and you'll get a lot just from watching. And of course, if you do have any problems or any issues, questions, suggestions, not just technical problems, you can always email or fill in our web form to get in touch with our technical support team. They sit about 10 metres from me and they're always coming up to the product team to get them information to help answer your questions and queries. So please use that resource as well.